Okay. Buenos días, buenas tardes, and good morning for one side of the world, and good afternoon for everybody. My name is Giorgia Miotto, and on behalf of the organization of the International Meeting on Business Institution and New Normal, I would like to welcome all the participants and all the institutions that are going to participate to this Congress. I'm extremely happy to welcome you here because we will have more than 70 communications, all of them that are about the impact of COVID-19 on business management, but also in different organizations and institutions. We are all spent a quite difficult year. 2020 and the beginning of 2021 have been quite difficult to manage, but also very enriching on the research side, especially all the research that are dealing with corporate management, institutional management, politics, etc. And we will have 2 days of communication and conferences about all these topics. But before giving the kickoff of this Congress, I would like to ask some people to say some words on representation of the different institutions that organize this Congress. As I said, my name is Giorgia Miotto. I am Vice Blanquerna, School of Communication and International Relations in Barcelona, Ramon University. And the first person I would like to ask to say some words is Professor Enrique Martín-Armario, President of Camilo Prado Foundation. Please, Professor Martín, the floor is yours.
Gracias, Gina. Bien, mi nombre es Enrique Martín-Armario y estoy en este meeting en representación de la Fundación Camilo Prado como presidente de la misma. Y quiero en primer lugar pues saludar a todos. Buenos días, colegas de Boston. Buenas tardes, colegas de España. Y constituye realmente un placer el que la Fundación Camilo Prado tenga la oportunidad de participar en este meeting y sobre todo de dar apoyo a este tipo de eventos, sobre todo en estos tiempos difíciles de la pandemia, en la que reunirse, en la que poner en común nuestros conocimientos, en la que en definitiva establecer relaciones con otros colegas forma una parte intrínseca de nuestro trabajo, pero quizás también la más gratificante de todas. Este meeting, aunque sea a través en forma online, nos permite cumplir con esa aspiración. La Fundación quiere, dentro de su finalidad, tiene por objeto básicamente el prestar apoyo a las actividades de docencia e investigación en management. Y este meeting constituye obviamente un objeto de aplicación de ese apoyo. Yo quiero felicitar particularmente a los organizadores de este meeting por la brillante idea que han tenido, al comité organizador, y felicitar también a los ponentes, porque no es fácil reunir esta cantidad de ponencias, la cantidad de ponencias que han presentado, y sobre todo en un tema tan actual y tan, digamos, tan vibrante como es el impacto del COVID en los diferentes sectores de actividad económica de nuestros países. Nada más, muchas gracias y que tengan ustedes un feliz trabajo.
Thank you so much, Professor Martin, for your words. We really appreciate the help of the foundation. And I would like to ask to Professor Camilo Prado-Román to say some words in representation as Secretary General of AEDEM, European Academy of Management and Business Economics. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Giorgia. Good afternoon or good morning, and welcome to this act of the Second International Meeting on Business Institutions and the New Normal. And thank you all for your assistance. Without us, this not happened possible. It is a pleasure to be with great friends, and thank you, Alicia, Giorgia, and Greg, for your effort in organizing this great event. The European Academy of Management and Business Economics, AEDEM, and the other collaboration institutions would like to welcome to you to the second international meeting. The European Academy of Management and Business Economics is a forum for the broad exchange of research experience in management and business economics. It was founded in 1983 to promote teaching and research excellence in business economics. In these next 2 days, different papers will be exposed, and I am sure that the debate will be important and fruitful, a success. Let's enjoy and learn from this great experience. I want to thank Rey Juan Carlos University, Blanquerna School of Communication and International Relations, and Emerson College, and Camilo Prado Foundation too, for the online hospitality you are having with us. Without your support, this would not have been possible. Thank you very much. Thank you, Giorgia.
Thank you so much, Camilo. And now the floor is for Alicia, Dr. Alicia Blanco-González, Vice Dean of the School of Law and Social Science, Universidad Rey Juan Carlos, and one of the soul of this Congress, and the person that, I may say, had the great idea to organize this Congress. Alicia, please.
Thank you so much, Giorgia. Dear colleagues and participants, Rey Juan Carlos University and our partners welcome all participants to this academical conference. The topic for this meeting is business, institutions, and the new normal, with its focus on the impact of the COVID pandemic into the economic, social, and environmental dimensions from a global point of view. An international pandemic that defines the spirit that we want to give to this activity, so linked to educational institutions. This conference wants to show and share the research and work of universities and institutions in order to learn about other experiences and strengthen the relationship between the participants. During these days, experts in business administration, economics, and communication will present their results to fight against this terrible virus. It is our responsibility because we are researchers. My gratitude to the organizers, Dr. Payne, Enrique Martín-Armario, Encarnación González Vázquez, my friends Miotto, and too, it's necessary to say that this international meeting will not be possible without the dedication and effort of the colleagues who make up the organizing committee, my team, my wonderful team. I love you. Also thanks to the scientific committee to ensure the scientific standards, as well as the sponsoring and collaborating institutions. To conclude, and with great satisfaction, we would like to thank all the professors and professionals you all make this conference success. Welcome to this international meeting, and thank you very much for your attention. And thank you, my friends, Giorgia and Miotto.
Thank you so much, Alicia. And now is turn of Dr. Payne, Chair, Head of Communication Study Department in Emerson College. I would like to just to say that I was remembering this morning when 2 years ago in Boston, we said that in 2021, we should organize a Congress between Madrid, Barcelona, and Boston. And the Congress should be in Boston with so many people, and we were ready to organize this event. Nobody thought at that stage that a pandemic would change our lives so much for these 2 years, and that coming to Boston wouldn't be an option. But a few months ago, we said we need to keep on track, we need to keep doing things, even if it's through a screen, virtually, because we cannot stop. We need to go on and work together because these three cities together, Madrid, Boston, and Barcelona, need to go on and working together for research and for community outreach and helping institution organization to get better. And this is the reason we are here talking each other and doing networking, but most of all sharing knowledge that should be useful for worldwide global issue. So nobody is better talking about this kind of speech than Dr. Payne, a person with a huge experience in building bridge in different communities and different culture. So please, Dr. Payne, I would invite you to do to held the opening conference of this Congress. The title will be Building Bridges Through Civic Engagement and the Challenge of COVID and the New Normal. Dr. Payne, please, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. What I will do is share a PowerPoint with you. As we're doing that, though, what I would like to do is actually thank Alicia and Giorgia, as well as Camilo, Enrique, and Juan, and all of my friends, all my amigos y amigas at Rey Juan Carlos. I think when we look back at the relationship that we have had, it's very, very clear that this group of cities, Barcelona, Madrid, and Boston, even with political tensions and differences, it's what I call a triangle of trust. And it's trusted individuals in each of these that reach beyond what we oftentimes would see with regard to mediated realities to really what we share in terms of commonalities. So today, what I would like to do, and I'm having a little bit of a problem, I think, getting access here. So I'm not quite sure, but if we can get that, I'll head off.
Juan, necesitamos que Greg pueda compartir su presentación.
Sí, puede, sin problema.
¿Sí? Can you try again, Greg? You should be able.
It says host disabled participant sharing screen. So
Okay.
Probably just a mistake.
Juan, tienes que darle la opción de poder compartir.
If there is a problem, Giorgia, I'd sent that to you also.
Yes, please. Please.
Yes. I think it actually, you should have it in your email. I think you or Alicia would have it. But what I will talk about as we're looking for this is, I think it's very important, as I said, this triangle of trust. And one of the themes that I'm going to be talking about is I'm going to be discussing the idea of keeping very much everything together at the grassroots level. And I think now I might have access. So let's go to that. Okay, let's share.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, we've got the presentation. Okay. As I said, when we look at the world, we, of course, are covered with various political, religious, cultural issues. And one of the themes, and again, very grateful for Alicia, for Giorgia and Camilo and the foundation to put this together, because one of my themes is going to be, regardless of the challenges we have, one of the most important weapons we have in terms of bridging the gap is communication. And we can see with this type of experience today that even with COVID, we're able to reach around the world, we're able to reach people, we're trying to find commonalities that unite us. And what I would like to do as we think back, and Giorgia was reflecting, and Alicia and Camilo, of course, we remember many good times in Boston and Madrid and Barcelona. I really think that for all of us, especially the students listening today, the most important thing for you to learn as a communicator is the art of storytelling. It's very important to pass that on to your students and to pass that on to also your children. And that is, in times like we are facing, there will be heroic individuals who will set the stage, who will say, out of such darkness, away from masks like these, we're going to be able to see the light. And when I think back of November 2019, which was not that long ago, I remember a time in Boston, and I also remember a time in Blanquerna. And these were very, very exciting times in Blanquerna, where we had 4 continents, over 50 presentations. It was, again, a collaboration. You can see down here on the left, President Pelton with Sarah Sam from Madrid. You can see our good friend Enrique, Michela Whalen. We can see a group of students from Blanquerna and Portugal. And we can also see the Kimball family. We were all visiting Barcelona. We could see Javier Curtix. We introduced people from Africa. We also saw Andrew Geiger introduce esports and talking about the power of esports to bring people together in such times. We also, it was a very fitting honor because I received an honoris causa, and I'm forever grateful to my friends in Barcelona and Madrid for coming down and making that so special. And when I think about that, and of course you can see my dear friends at the top here on the right, I think about how important it is, the sense of community and the sense that this is what really makes us all worthwhile in terms of living and what we are all about. And then I remember this, March 2020, what I call BC, BC being before COVID. This was our last trip abroad when we went to Lisbon, we went to Madrid, and we went to Barcelona. And unfortunately, at the time, we were there at the first part of March, we were visiting stadiums. So here we were in Portugal and Lisbon, and we were taking in person what it was all about. We then went to Barcelona, where I met up with our students who were actually in Barcelona studying with Giorgia, Enrique, and our dear friends there. And we were having some food at a local bistro. We're not going to get into who has better food, Madrid or Barcelona, because I like restaurants in both places, but the power to gastro diplomacy to bring us together. Here were three excited individuals when we got on the train from Portugal to go on that, what I would call the midnight train to Madrid. And we then got to, in Portugal, we also had insights on the American presidential election, because of course, this was coming up. And then when we got to Madrid, I didn't go to El Clasico, but I met with two of my favorite friends from Juan Carlos, and they took me to a nice dinner here. You can see the two of them, and we had a great time. Now, we had two people who were quite happy with Real Madrid's win, and another was not quite so happy because he was rooting for Barca. And then all of a sudden, this hit, COVID. COVID changed things forever. It suddenly made those types of memories, those types of storytelling, it challenged all of us, because at the end of the day, what we have to do with Kenneth Burke and his famous pen tag, which is act, agent, agency, sing, and purpose, we have to tell the story. We have to write the history of what we're experiencing, whether it be in business, whether it be in politics or culture. And I think initially what we have to think about is, again, what is a crisis? And many of you at Blanquerna, as well as in Portugal and also at Juan Carlos, have tremendous teachers in business and economics at ADM that give wonderful insights in terms of crisis. And we know that we could, of course, read and go on forever. This entire conference could have been about crisis, and it is to a certain extent. But simply put, it's an abrupt change of the status quo. We no longer could do as we had done in those pictures before. And for a crisis, I think Enrique knows, because he's been part of a foundation that has provided a light in terms of crises in the past. It could either be a paralysis, and that is people unable to move forward, or for people like those coming to this conference, people like Giorgia and Alicia and Camilo and Juan and Enrique and all the presenters. I'm very impressed by the fact that you have 70 panels, et cetera. It's going to be an opportunity for the adaptive leader to chart out the new normal. So while some people are saying we can't do anything because of COVID, I think others are saying, no, we must move forward. Because in all honesty, for a number of years now, we have lived in an age of crisis. On one hand, public communication, which is ground up rather than top down, has replaced what we would call mass communication, because we have seen in C. Wright Mills's classic book, The Power Elite, he indicated that information in the control of a few would be replaced by information in control of the many. And many of us thought at the time of the internet that this would be a great democratic force. And in many instances it was. But the one thing that you're going to hear me echo throughout this today is information is just data. And it's almost like George Orwell said, as long as we can agree that 2 + 2 is 4, we can continue the dialogue. But unfortunately, we have people that say that 2 + 2 equals an apple, or 2 + 2 equals 9. We can't agree upon the facts. And that's why we're going to talk about today, again, in the age of crisis, we live in a very visual world. Everything is visual. Today, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. If suddenly the visuals go out, we spend a lot of time with visual. We also are oral. The beauty of today is, as Marshall McLuhan would have said back in the 1960s, that the medium is the massage or the medium is the message. We like to get ourselves involved in what he would call synesthesia, but in essence, even with all the information that we have, as we know, in a very unstable world. When something happens in Yemen, when something happens in Istanbul, it happens and it has ripples throughout the world. We also have rapidity. The idea that I'm instantaneously speaking to you in Madrid is quite promising in many ways for us as storytellers to reach publics around the world. Also convergence. Many fields, public relations, public affairs, public diplomacy, are all converging into what I call strategic communication, where we're looking to try to find that target audience, coming up with the strategic message and engaging in what we would call conversations that's fact-based and meaningful. And in many respects, it allows us to do, instead of globalization, nation branding, place branding, and in this instance, we're doing institutional branding with Rey Juan Carlos leading the way, all the other institutions taking part as we try to find a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, one of my favorite quotes for those of us who believe that we're adaptive leaders and that we can overcome this challenge of COVID, I like for us to think about Sisyphus. And of course, this goes back to the Greeks and Homer, in which you had Sisyphus pushing the stone up the hill, and he would get almost to the top of the hill, and then the stone would actually fall back down. But Sisyphus, like all of us here today, know that you have to keep pushing, that even with COVID, we have to, of course, wait for the vaccine. I took the vaccine. I just shared this with some of your colleagues. I have had a very sore arm and I was very, very tired. I'll go back for my second shot. But I'll go back for my second shot because I want to be like Sisyphus, as all of us change agents here want to do, and get this over the hill. So when we think about the era that we're living in also, my question to you is, we live in what we call constructive ambiguity, and that is politicized by politics, by culture, by religion. My question for all you watching is, how many legs do you see this elephant having? I think some of you will say you see 4, some of you will say you see 6, and that's really what is involved today in terms of critical thinking and trying to more or less get into the eyes of the other. And one word I would say that is rampant today in terms of needs with the COVID crisis, empathy, trying to understand that person that we're dealing with. Now, some of you might say, what is civic engagement? We use that term a lot. And for this conference, which I, again, think is so important, we can look at civic engagement as each of us working to make a difference in the civic life of one's community. And as you will see, most of the leadership at the upper governmental levels, and Alicia and the outstanding research at Rey Juan Carlos has shown with Giorgia's work also, that we have a lack of trust in many of the governments, whether it be in Spain, the United States, or around the world. And what that means is that business and local leaders and each of us as professors have more of an effort and a challenge to make a difference in the civic life of one's community. We have to work in civic engagement to develop the knowledge, the skills, the values to make that difference. And that's what each of us are pledged to do with this conference. And we have to promote a quality of life in community through both political and the non-political process. Now, one thing I'd like to call attention to, and this is one of my favorite studies, is the Edelman Trust Barometer. And unfortunately, what we've seen in the latest data that's just been released, and you can tell by the pictures, that just as this conference says, that it's been an era of strife. In the United States, we've had the first insurrection since the British invaded, hundreds of years ago. We've had a Confederate flag in the Capitol, something that was never done during the Civil War. We've had the murder of George Floyd, which has caused us to have a reawakening of racism in the United States. And that's been something that we have seen countries around the world, including yours, also witness how we treat people. Again, the term empathy. The one thing that we have seen, and this is reflected in ADIUM and other papers that I've seen in this conference, is that there's a global lack of trust. That trust has profoundly changed with the employer emerging as the most trusted institution. So 75% of the people worldwide trust their employer. NGOs are down to 57%, business 56%, government 48%, media, which we would hope would be very credible, down to 47%. And the takeaways from this year, something we all have to think about, there's an epidemic of misinformation. In the United States, we have a past president who just came from his first speech in which he said he won the election by a landslide. He also said that there was fake voting. There's widespread mistrust of societal institutions, leaders around the world. That's what we've seen out of the work of Ray Juan Carlos in terms of their trust and competency survey. There's a failing trust in the ecosystem to confront the infodemic. And I say infodemic because, again, we have a lot of information, but not trusted information. There's an environment of what we would call information bankruptcy and a chronic need to rebuild the trust and to chart a new path forward. Now, all of this is impacting business. It's impacting government. It's in fact impacting education and NGOs. And what we have now lived in is we've adjusted as change agents to an era of Zoom and Google Hangouts. All of us here today, and some of us, I know that Alicia as a vice dean, I know she has these issues just like I, where faculty members can't come to work. They won't come to work. They feel that, as Maslow would say, their health is their most important need. We are living in a time where we have a great mental challenge, and we have to try to figure out how do we, as change agents, move forward. And I think one of the first things that this group is indicative of is what we at Emerson tried to adjust to immediately, and that is after returning from Madrid, Barcelona, and Lisbon, we figured out how are we going to deal with COVID? How are we going to deal with the fact that we have a national reflection and vigil to remember the 9/11 members lost in 2001? Are we going to cancel that? We didn't cancel that. You know, I went to the center of the Boston Common, and we had over 125 people visit virtually and give comments. And so what we decided then is, rather than look at Zoom as a very difficult scenario, what we are going to be doing is looking at Zoom as a new means, and we might as well get used to this. Things will never change again the way it was before. We're going to be forever realizing, when you think about this, the economical advantage of doing a Zoom meeting. On one hand, I miss the culinary delights of Madrid. I miss my friends. But when I look at budgets, this is one thing where we can come together. And I think we'll be making some choices with regard to what, and we have to have at least one. We have to have an agreement, at least one in Madrid and one Barcelona each year, and then at least one in Boston. But I think we've all learned how to communicate quite differently. And what we also need to realize is that we can do things in a much grander scale in some ways. Now, take, for instance, when we did our first global pre-summit, we had panels, and these are just some of the topics. Instead of having it in Boston, we were able to bring in people from Nashville. We were able to talk about civic engagement in the Country Music Hall of Fame. We were able to look at sports and global diplomacy from the perspective of Washington, D.C. We were looking at personal wellness and the Team Harmony panel. And what we decided to do, and of course you'll see some of your colleagues, in October 22nd and 23rd, we put together our pre-summit with Blanquerna, of which Ray Juan Carlos was also a very, very important contributor. Many people said we couldn't do this. As a matter of fact, the university told me it's going to cost $6,000 to host this, and we don't have the money. And I said, I think you're ignoring one of our most precious resources, our students. And our students were able to do the entire thing. And what we had was we had 110 panelists. We had 90 panels, 46 universities, and 12 countries. this was much larger than anything that we had done in the past. So we had an individual, as you can see, the woman on the left, she was coming to us from China. We also had Howard University, the lady here at the very bottom, the Dean of Howard, talking with my Dean, Raul, and we announced that we have a new program with Howard. We had an individual, Gail, from Dubai up here at the top, and then of course, Dean Carbonell wearing an Emerson logo there with our provost, Michela Whalen. Also, you can see others in this where we brought in colleagues of Giorgia's from Blanquerna. We had people from Michigan State and from Harvard. And this was something where I realized very quickly. We also, over here to the left, we had the poet laureate from Washington who was able to give us a poem. We had individuals, you can see one person here in Costa Rica was able to talk about the ecology, and we involved students. Then a month later, we decided, well, let's do something on the American behavioral scientists. And each of you that are hosting this are part of this, which is one of America's most respected refereeing journalists. And we, again, in the past, we had had maybe 30 panelists. We had had possibly 10 panels, maybe 10 or 12 universities. Here we doubled it. So the one thing I would say for us as we look again at sort of the capture here is when we look at this new normal, again, we were able to include Castlewell. If you look over to the right, the upper right, we were able to include a journalist from Nepal. I think you can see some of your colleagues here. Dr. Scott Ratson on the left is going to be your closing individual who's been doing a great deal of work in terms of COVID and looking how we can move things forward. And of course, Ray Juan Carlos was very, very much represented here. Here we have the Saudis giving us perspectives from Riyadh. And it was a most enjoyable scenario. This was a women's panel that was looking at the role of women, and the person to the right was a candidate for the Indian Parliament. And we were very pleased to have her there. And I think what we have seen through all of this and what it reflects is the spirit of this particular conference is that in such eras of crisis, that civic engagement involves each and every one of us being someone that has the credibility and the trust. And more importantly, I've grown to truly appreciate the empathy to try to figure out and feel and understand, as Aristotle said 2,000 years ago in the rhetoric, the pathos of what the audience is all about. Now, one thing that we've been able to do, and I think our institutions represented here have been a part of it, is we've been a part of a global effort that's called Team Harmony. And I'm not going to go too much into this, but in essence, what it is it's a reaction to a terrible crisis. As you know, last year in the United States, George Floyd was murdered by police officers with a boot to the neck. This was something that riveted America. And the president of Emerson, whom Giorgia, Alicia, and Carmelo know, Lee Pelton, is our first African-American president. And he grew up in the Midwest at a time in Kansas when racism was quite prevalent. And he wrote a very, very passionate letter to the Emerson community, which received coverage in the Washington Post, the New York Times, in which he outlined his struggles, but he said he had faith in the educational systems that we all love and believe in. But he then posed a question to Americans and to the Emerson community: what are you going to do? And we took it to heart. Myself, as well as colleagues from the universities represented here, became a part of a global effort called Team Harmony. And thanks to Alicia and Giorgia and Carmelo, they're going to be talking about Team Harmony. We started with 3 people. It's all about civic engagement. Myself, Rick Rendon, and another colleague. And we came up with an idea for what we call webinars that are going to dealing with hate, LGBTQ issues, racism, women in sports. And these will be going on for the next 6 months. If you just go to teamharmonyfoundation.org, you can find it. But what we saw is that within the time period from the summer to now, we have 130 youth reporters from around the world. We had a young girl from Egypt talking about some of the issues of women's rights in Egypt. And I'll close by just showing this one clip, which indicates what Team Harmony is all about. And it stars the Emerson students who've taken a big role in Team Harmony. So we will show you Team Harmony and you'll hear about them later. Except I don't think that's Team Harmony. So what if we can back up a bit? Let me get, I'm not sure if we can get back to Team Harmony. Hold on a second. I don't think Nicky Jam is Team Harmony, so. Okay, let's try it again. I think Camilo's excited that I knew who Nicky Jam was, so. All right, we'll try this.
Hate crimes are on the rise.
Targets of these hate crimes are diverse.
There was a deadly attack in Jersey City on a kosher grocery store.
Do we really need to see any more?
You know, it's like there's no other news.
It's hatred out of control.
One group hates another group.
It's like it goes on and on and on.
But now there's something you can do.
It's called Team Harmony.
And what is Team Harmony?
Team Harmony is a multicultural forum designed to unite youth of all backgrounds.
In the battle against prejudice, bigotry, and hatred.
And to affect social justice for all people.
And partnering with the fine people at Emerson College, we have a plan.
We're developing a web series starting this fall.
It's called Hate. What are you gonna do?
It will show what young people everywhere are doing to combat this plague of hate.
It's gonna give people ideas of what they can do right where they are.
There will be discussions, interviews, and field reports from around the world.
And that last part is where we need your help.
We need field reporters.
Which means we need people to audition to be those field reporters.
It's kind of like a casting call. Here's what we need.
We need people who will grab their phone and go out into their community and show the world how the fight against hate is going.
The world needs to see these stories because the news media probably won't cover it.
So you cover it.
So get your phone. Find people to talk to, cover an event, but remember, it has to look and sound good.
We don't need home movies.
In other words, it's a test. We want to see your personality and how well you can do.
So do something, post something, and send us a link.
For more information about how you can get involved
and how you can submit your videos, please visit our website.
Go to teamharmonyfoundation.org.
Again, that's teamharmonyfoundation.org. And above all, have fun.
Good luck, everybody.
Okay, so that will take me down, I think, to the latter slide. Sorry about this. What I would say, though, in closing is that it all basically reflects one thing, and it basically is something that is empowered by this particular conference, and that we face a global pandemic like nothing that I have seen before. I think if you have empathy, I think if you have credibility, I think if you have trust, you don't need to be a PR agent like the Edelman Group to know that. The scholars here today have been looking to how we can better communicate that with the pandemic, the most important thing we have is each other. And so it's with that faith and with the spirit that we have at this particular conference that I ask all of us to think about what Robert Kennedy said, someone who touched my life when I was a student. And he basically said that in the long run, we can countermaster change, not through force or fear, but only through the free work of an understanding mind, through an openness to new knowledge and fresh outlooks, which can only strengthen the most fragile and the most powerful human gifts, the gifts of reason. And for each of us, I think each time we stand up against an injustice, each time we put our mask on, we are sending forth a tiny message that together there isn't any challenge that we can meet. And for the next 2 days, I look forward to hearing how I can become better educated in meeting those challenges. Thank you so much, Giorgia, Alicia, Camilo, and Ray Juan Carlos for hosting us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg. Dr. Payne is always so inspiring. Listen to you. I would really, if we were there together, I would ask for an applause, and I will send you just we will send you just a virtual applause, because listen to these words is extremely inspiring, especially in this time where everything sounds all the time so negative. But as you said, there are some lights of hope for the future. and each gesture that we can do responsibly can make the difference. And we would love to make the difference in the next 2 days, just sharing knowledge about what we understood about the new normal and how we can get profit of this new normal. As Dr. Payne said, probably this would have been very costly to do physically, going to Boston or wherever. Some of us probably wouldn't be able to participate. And now we are all over here also because virtually in some way it's easier, even if we need to meet each other at least once per year physically because we need to have a strong hug. But from the other side is enriching to share knowledge also virtually. And we need to keep pushing, even if the hill is deep. And this is something I will say also tonight when I will go home with my family and my friends, and I will say a lot of time in the next month that we need to keep pushing even if the hill is deep. So thank you, Dr. Payne. Thank you to everybody. In 15 minutes, the panels conference will start in a different, not in YouTube as most of you are now following this opening conference. Each conference speaker has a link to get into Zoom, and you will be able to upload your presentation because all the speaker will have the privilege to share presentation. Please try to keep time management as tight as possible. We should give 7 minutes for each presentation because afterward we will dedicate some time for Q&A because we would like this conference being as much interactive as possible. So it's so interesting to explain what we have to explain, but it's much more interest to answer questions because sometimes the questions are as clever as the replies. So we will go to a different Zoom. Everybody will have a link to get there, 7 minutes for each conference and then Q&A. And the moderator of each panel will be the one that will keep time management and give the word to each speaker, okay? And then now I will ask to Alicia if you can please just summarize the detail in Spanish as well, because we do have a very interesting and big Latin America community also participating from the other side of the world, and they will do some conferences in Spanish as well, and I would like to thank all of them as well. Please, Alicia.
Thank you, Giorgia. Thank you, Dr. Payne, for your conference. And now, unas pequeñas notas en castellano para los que tengan dudas. A partir del panel 1, que empieza a las 5, se ha enviado un mail normalmente al corresponder... A las 4, sí, a las 4, perdonad. Se ha enviado un link al corresponder author, pero si tenéis cualquier duda podéis escribir a mi correo electrónico, al de la profesora Miotto, para poder acceder con los links. Podréis compartir pantalla, tendréis unos 7, 10 minutos máximo para hacer las presentaciones, porque yo creo que lo que más enriquece es el diálogo, la interacción e ir fortaleciendo los vínculos con colegas de nuestras universidades y de otras. Yo espero participar mucho, aprender muchísimo del COVID y estos 2 días intensamente, desde hoy a las 4 y ya mañana empezamos por la mañana con un panel en castellano, tendremos el placer de aprender muchísimo hasta mañana casi que a las 10 de la noche. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Giorgia, Enrique Martín-Armario, Camilo Prado, Dr. Payne, and Juan, Gabriel Martínez Navalón. Is fundamental for this team.
Yes. So thank you for everybody. I would close this opening session now and see you to the Zoom room where we will have all our conference panels. Thank you for everything and see you later. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Enrique. Bye-bye.
Ciao.